Hi, Sunita.
Hi.
Hi, so Priyali will be joining from her account, so just give us a minute.
I had no idea it couldn't be from the computer.
Sure, no problem.
Hi.
Hi, Sunita.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, at least we have you here and we can start the conversation. Let's just wait for some more of our viewers to join. Um, so, um,
I'm really sorry. I'm not very good with Instagram and I was trying to join from my computer.
it's all right. It's okay. No worries. I'm really glad we have you here. I was just telling the viewers who had joined us, and I'm really hoping, I told them like I'm going to sign off and everybody can join back again, that they join back. I was talking about how we are just 2 days away from observing in India the 75th Republic Day, and what this really means. Obviously, in every theoretical terms, and in what it means the adoption of our constitution 75 years. But in present day, how important is this, and what does this mean for Indians and people living in India? And also the fact that just 2 days before we saw this construction and inauguration of the Ram temple in Ayodhya, and how it has been portrayed as something which is a great symbolic thing for all Hindus across the world. Um, and I feel a lot of us, I'm a Hindu, and I think a lot of us said that everything that is associated with the inauguration of this temple or the way it was done um, does not um does not conform to our ideals of our religion or what we believe in, our identity, or even the secular nature of our constitution. In so many ways, this is so unconstitutional, what has happened. As the co-founder of the organization Hindus for Human Rights, an organization that talks about pluralism and challenges notions of oppression, bigotry, and also Hindutva, your thoughts on this? And I know you all countered this message in a significant way in New York. So if you can share more about that.
Thank you, everybody at Azadi and Priyali. It's really wonderful to be here. And I'm sorry I almost didn't make it. Yeah, it's been, what can I say? It's been a difficult week, let's say. But I'm feeling a lot better now. I think in the days leading up to the inauguration day, the 22nd, I was quite defeated. But I'm realizing that this is not a surprise to many of us. I've been a human rights activist my whole life. I'm from India. I was raised being so proud of secular India, which has a promise in that constitution of equal rights for every citizen. And the word secular in India versus the West is very, I think, significant and poignant. In the West, it's the opposite of religion. It's that which is not religious is secular in the West. In India, the word secular means the coexistence and the mutual honoring of each religion and each religious community. And I've grown up with that notion of secular, and I've been so proud that when India was birthed, it was birthed in a bloodbath. And it would have been reasonable, in a way, to say, the partition was a severance, was a rupture that happened on a religious fault line. And India you could see it. It could have been born as a Hindu nation. And clearly, at that time, there were people who wanted it to be born as a Hindu nation. But the forefathers and foremothers, the founders of India, had a different vision. And that is the vision that has been under attack from that moment, and it is under attack right now. So, if you just read the history, this moment should not come as a surprise. The foundation stone of the Ram Mandir was laid on the anniversary of the abrogation of Article 370. This inauguration ceremony took place on an anniversary of the killing of Graham Staines. The it comes days before Republic Day, but also days before Martyrs' Day, the assassination of Gandhiji. So the perpetrators of those atrocities are the people whose day this is. And we should not be surprised. The deep chagrin that I have is that I'm a Hindu too, and I'm the Hey Ram Hindu versus the Jai Shri Ram as murder cry Hindu, as I think you are too. And the deep chagrin is that my family, my community, my extended family, they see this as a day of victory. And I don't think it's because they're all rabid fascists. I think there's just, they're not seeing what we see so clearly. That we are, up until Sunday, I would be saying that we are standing in front of an oncoming train. I think we have been hit by the train. Being in Times Square, seeing the hundreds of, Hindu celebrators holding the saffron flag with in Times Square, New York City, the center of New York City. I think it's, and this is months before the election, which we don't know what will happen, of course, but probably they'll win. I think that, whatever I have been scared of since, for the last 2 decades is here.
Yeah.
This is real. And what do? I think we have to keep speaking. Those of us who know, those of us who can see, need to keep speaking the truth, not be afraid. We cannot fight this from our armchairs. We have to inconvenience ourselves. We have to take risks. Umar Khalid is in jail now for, what is it, close to 3 years.
Yeah.
Just before he went to jail, he came on a webinar with us. And he took the time to say, Sunita ji, I like the name of your organization, Hindus for Human Rights. And he said, because some people say, why do we get to speak about India? We are living, in the comforts of the diaspora. We are terrified of Hindutva here in the diaspora. It was hundreds of people. It would have been thousands of people if it had not been a winter day. And so the fight is in the diaspora and in India. Hindutva is a global ideology. Umar Khalid saw that. He said, what else will you do? You love your country. And so you will be fighting this from where you are. And we need to, how did we win India? How many people went to jail? So in honor of Umar Khalid, in honor of our forefathers and foremothers, let us be real about what's happening in India and be brave if we can and fight for the India that we believe in.
So I think somebody on the comments also said this is the best analogy that they've heard. We're not just standing facing a train, an oncoming train, but we've been hit by it. And I know you're seeing what you're seeing in the diaspora, but living here in New Delhi, what we see is unprecedented. We've never seen something like this. We see saffron flags every corner. There's no permission taken for, coloring an entire neighborhood saffron. There's like absolutely no unapologetic, unabashed saffronization which is going on. And I think that is giving a lot of people who were partially on the fence or maybe not sure about what they want, where their ideals are or what they think is, and also the spread of misinformation in addition to that is making all of this, making them believe in something which can be very harmful and again unconstitutional. It's interesting that you mentioned that you grew up listening to the ideals of secularism, that our constitution is based, our country is based on the the secular fabric. There's also an entire debate around it. In fact, if you're sitting in India, if you put the word secular on Google or any search engine, the first thing that comes up is that the word secular was introduced much later in our constitution or in the preamble of our constitution, only in 1976. And this whole debate around whether secular should be in the preamble at all or in the constitution at all. What are your thoughts on that and how would you kind of challenge that notion?
I'm an activist. So the questions about the word secular, when it was added, whether it should be added, those are I'm sure there are debates of the moment. My concern is, what do we do to save India from the throes of becoming a religious autocracy, a theocracy? So I would argue that the notion of a secular India was in the constitution from the very beginning. Politics might have kept the word from being in there. And I'm glad that it was added. And it terrifies me that there's a debate about taking the word out. And I'm sure that there will be political and academic circles where that will be debated. I want to reach into the hearts of every Indian who cares about their country and cares about the rights and the lives of every Indian, especially minority community Indians, especially Muslim Indians. And I would say, don't get caught up in some, abstract discussion. Do what you can today to save lives. And if you in Delhi or anybody is surprised when you look out the window and see this saffronization, I don't know why it's such a surprise, honestly, because this has been happening from the very beginning. But I agree with you that this extent of it is somewhat unprecedented. The fact that you have justices and elected officials, making photo ops out of pilgrimages and temple visits. And then you have, this is justices who are supposed to be, secular and objective and so forth. And then you have the head of state becoming the yajman, the actual officiant of the ceremony that we just saw. That's the train hitting us, where the state, the nationhood, and the majority religion are one. That is what we are seeing right now. And
so
if
Sunita,
there's a sense of surprise about this, I want to bring some humility and compassion to meet that sense of surprise. I was talking in earlier last year, after the Manipur conflict. This most recent episode began with somebody from the Manipur North America Tribal Association, NAMTA, a beautiful diaspora organization fighting for the rights of Manipuris right now, the Koki Zomi people who are under assault. And this woman said to me that, and she's living in America, and she said to me, when I was bemoaning how my community is sleepwalking into fascism, which is how I feel it because I am so scared. She said that she was living in America, and on May 3rd, this latest conflict began in Manipur, where she's from.
yeah,
On May 4th, her house was burned down, her family's house. That was the day that she realized something was wrong in India. May 4th of last year. And since then, she has been active, fighting, speaking, screaming. And so her point is that human nature is that we don't sometimes wake up until the monster comes for us. And the nature of this ideology is that it's a far right-wing, hateful ideology. It will come for us, whoever we are. We will not escape it. And so whether it's today or in 5 years or in 10 years, there's no escaping the horrors that will come from this ideology. But the reason I feel better today than a few days ago is that I've had time to think about it. And there's always, if you look at history, there's a churning. And the fact that people are waking up, the fact that you and I are talking, the fact that a country like South Africa in our lifetime saw the end of apartheid, the fact that millions of people around the world are taking to the streets, even in countries where it's illegal to do so, to fight for a ceasefire, to call and scream for a ceasefire on Gaza today. These struggles and these assertions of love and courage should give us hope, and we should bet on that hope as opposed to the despair, which is right in front of us. And we could choose to have despair and be paralyzed, but I hope that many people inside and outside India will choose to take the risk. It is dangerous, but we are not going to win this without stepping out of our comfort zone, arguing, fighting with our family members, bringing evidence. Hindus for Human Rights, we meet the disinformation with facts. If you look at our YouTube channel, the videos that we produce will be very useful for you in speaking to your family members and bringing evidence-based arguments. The first fight, Suraj Yengde, a Dalit rights scholar and activist, he said, every Hindu needs to be a suicide bomber inside your family. That takes a lot of courage. You need a cast iron stomach to fight with the people you love, but that is what it's going to take. That's the first battle.
So, Sunita, you make very, very many interesting points. I'm going to touch upon two things which we think is very critical. So one of the comments says that what's sad is that how any criticism for the government is automatically deemed as an anti-national sentiment. Since when did nationalism become equated with blind allegiance to the ruling party? I think that's one really problematic issue right now. You can't say anything which questions the government or which questions the authority anymore, because if you question, you're seen as an anti-national. Whatever your religion is, and I don't think actually religion should be a question at this point at all. The other thing that you really mentioned is that you've never seen politics or state affairs being so intermixed with the affairs of the majority religion. This is the first time that we are seeing this. But again, there's, counter arguments to that. The counter arguments say that this happens in other countries as well. You see Biden using the Bible before he takes his swearing-in ceremony, or other people, or in the US or other countries where, their majority religion is seen dominantly in political affairs. So that's the argument that the other side says. How would you react to that?
I would say wherever religion and statehood politics are mixed, we should take that as a point of caution. And Americans should fight for a separate, the implementation of the promise of separation of church and state. That's on us. And Biden and every other president, bringing, God into their speeches, that's something that has happened throughout history. And, I certainly wish it didn't. But more than, any of the other presidents and elected officials invoking religion, the most terrifying moment was January 6th, a couple of years ago, where Trump stood with an upside down Bible, basically blessing the insurrection that took place. And so it's terrifying, no matter how you look at it, what might be coming to our country. So what I'm saying is that, yes, it is a problem, and it's a red flag wherever we see it. But what's happening in this country, in India, and so many countries around the world is a kind of far right extrapolation of that. And we shouldn't confuse the two. There's a problem, but there's like another level of problem. In India and England and America, certainly right now. And I would say that, when people bring up this argument, this happens in other countries, that's fine. Let the people of those countries fight their battles. That shouldn't be a cop-out for the people in any particular country to fight for their best, version of their nation. So each of us, as citizens of the country where where we live, should continue those domestic battles. And I also would say that those of us, it's a very interconnected world. People have migrated and count many countries as home. Especially immigrants around the world, and we should have the right to speak about the countries that we have love and allegiance to. And human rights anywhere are the responsibility of all of us on this planet. Are
you saying this because people question your right to talk about India sitting in the US?
The flip side of different communities with their identities fighting for their rights is the accusation that you should only talk about your rights, and I would disagree with that entirely. And I would also say that if you have Modi and Trump in Howdy Modi in Houston, you know, hugging and endorsing each other and celebrating in front of 50,000 mostly Hindu Americans, and they have the right to do their electioneering, you know, in other countries, then we have the right to speak about that, no matter where we are located physically. I want to say, so I was going to say that this, when people bring up this thought, this notion of, oh, but it's happening, you know, everywhere. That shouldn't be an excuse to, I mean, we shouldn't excuse what's happening in our own country. It's a complete, you know, it betrays our responsibility as citizens. And since 2011, that was when I first woke up to the current, I mean, I've known about Hindutva since I've, you know, been a conscious adult, a thinking adult. But 2011 was when I realized that there's this rightward shift in my own family and community. That was when I woke up to the fact that Islamophobia was being expressed in a much more open way in the spaces that are my intimate spaces. And that's when I started speaking out as a Hindu. Until then, I was a Hindu, but I wasn't necessarily saying it. And since then, and I come to India pretty regularly. It is the place. It's like Umar Khalid said that day, and I'm really thinking of him right now because, you know, his bail is back on the table, and so I'm really thinking of him. But he said, you know, he gave this endorsement of Hindus for Human Rights, and so and the name and the work that we do as Hindus. Ever since I've been coming to India, since I have been consciously worried about this problem of the rightward shift in the Hindu community, I've been coming with a question. And it has been, and I ask it wherever I go. I ask it to Hindus, I ask it to activists, I ask it to religious leaders. And it's a simple question of what is the role of an Indian citizen, a Hindu Indian citizen, in fighting for the secular republic, for the constitution. And in the beginning, I would often get kind of a glazed eye. People wouldn't like the question. They would say, why are you bringing religion into this? And then, and I would say, and there was even one time when there was a debate that started where I was in an interfaith gathering, and the question landed well with all the non-Hindus, because when you're the targeted population of this ideology, the harms are it's existential. So you know much more immediately what is at stake. But the Hindus in the room, they were more secular Hindus. They were not necessarily religious people. And they went into a kind of an academic debate about what is Hinduism? Does it really exist? Is it a religion? And so forth. And I just, after a few minutes of this, I lost patience. And I said, please have your conversation, your debate about whether Hinduism exists on your own time. Right now, we are hurtling towards a Hindu Rashtra. Can we please talk about my question, which is, what is the role of a Hindu in India for saving the democracy? So I bring this up to say we're here having this conversation. Presumably, many of your viewers care deeply about the Indian Constitution and our democracy. It is not too.
I hope so, because we're getting some comments which are not so deeply caring about our secularism and our constitution. Well, but yes, please go on. We'll always have those elements.
Yes. Well,
so, yes.
I would say it is not too late. It is never too late. I have 3 children. As long as I have children that I'm raising, I need to be on the side of what can I do to turn this around? What can I do to vote for hope, to vote for love, to vote for unity? So if you're a Hindu, even if you are a secular Hindu, if you're not religious, you're still counted as a Hindu. You don't get to, you're walking on this earth with the privileges that come from being in that majority community, which has more power than ever before. And so it is incumbent on you to answer that humble question that I, as a person outside the country, am asking. What is the role of Hindus in this point? I'm asking in this case, I'm asking Hindus who are awake to the harms of what's going on. What is your responsibility in bringing democracy back to India? Because I would argue that democracy is, I mean, if the train has hit us, it has hit democracy.
But Sunita, I think you ask a very valid question. But for people who are living here in India, and I'm saying this assuming that the fears that I feel and my close community feels, the people I'm around feel, are the fears that the larger population also feels. Anytime you raise your voice, anytime you say something, you're labeled as a terrorist, just as somebody
Yes.
just labeled us as terrorists, on the comments. Um, it's a very, 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 very toxic environment where anytime you talk about diversity, anytime you talk about minority rights, you're either called a terrorist or you're called an urban Naxal. So, in an environment like this, how does one safely talk about these issues?
You will talk about it when it is gone, because I say you, I mean all of us. We will have no choice but to speak this truth, that the world that we want, the country that we want, includes all of us. I really don't believe the majority of Indians want an India just for Hindus. I think when you have it, when, by the way, after the Haridwar Dharam Sansad that happened in December 2021, where the saffron-clad leaders actually explicitly called for a genocide of Muslims. Some months after that, some committee out of that group that gathered, they released a draft constitution for India. And these are promises. This is what they are. Nothing happening now wasn't already written quite clearly in electoral campaigns of the BJP. We really have no right to be surprised by any of this. It was all promised to us. So the subcommittee of the religious leaders that met in Haridwar, they released this draft constitution for India. And their India is constructed according to the birth-based caste system, and it will do away with the laws of the law and order the laws of today. It will do away with all of that, and it will bring laws from the Treta Yuga, which is the Yuga of the Ramayana. And it said Muslims and Christians have no vote in their India.
So I think you raised
I'm sorry, just to answer your question. Yeah. I think that, everyone has to do what they can do. I mean, I can't tell anyone what to do, but I've already said, and I argue again, that we have to take it on. We have to take on the risk. We have to risk being called, urban Naxal and anti-India. We have to, with the knowledge that we are not that we are actually fighting for the India of Gandhi and Ambedkar. We have to say it. We have to take the risk. We will not get anywhere without taking that risk.
And I think the most important and empowering tool that we still have is the power to vote, our right to vote, our power to vote. I think we should wisely use that power and think about it as we go ahead this year and cast our vote. Sunita, thank you so much for joining us. If you all want to know more about Sunita's work, you can see all the work that Sunita Viswanath and her organization Hindus for Human Rights does. Just follow their work on the handle at Hindus for Human Rights. Sunita, it was lovely to have you. Thank you so much for this very, very important conversation and for the work you do.
Thank you. And for all your listeners, please make Republic Day count.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Bye.